You are now entering a dangerous liberty zone where God-given natural rights are held sacred and exercised. This is your warning. Tyranny, fascism, and censorship will not be tolerated. Ideas will be exchanged freely. Rigorous debate and open discourse is encouraged. If you are weak and your beliefs are fragile, you should leave now. Prepare yourself. We are now live on the Dangerous Liberty Podcast. All right, folks, happy Wednesday and welcome to the Dangerous Liberty Podcast, where we know that safety at the expense of liberty is slavery. I want to say hi to everybody that are showing up there. We got a lot of stuff to cover tonight. Summer, how was your week?
It's fine.
Yeah, well, it was fine. That was it. It was just fine.
It's only halfway done.
Okay, all right. Chris, how was your week?
It's good. Another week married to my beautiful wife, Robin.
Awesome. We got J-Dog back there, and Sean, how was your guys' weeks?
It's been crazy, bro.
Yeah, it has been crazy.
It's been nuts out there.
All right, we want to welcome everybody that's showing up there in the comments, as well as anybody that's going to watch us there in the future. Make sure you start hitting us up live on Wednesday so that you can be part of this conversation. We want to hear your questions. We want to read your comments. And again, we want, especially on this topic, look, I want this channel to be kind of a central point where we can talk about this. I think what happened on July 13th was without a doubt not only an attack on our country, on our democratic election system, but also, a further erosion of the trust that we have in our U.S. institutions. And what I want to do is kind of sort through all the craziness. We got to get rid of the bad information so that we have good information so that we can come to the proper and right conclusions. And that's what this is all about. That's what the videos that I put out on this topic has been about. And we want to hear from you guys too. And there's new information coming out every single day. As a matter of fact, just prior to this, I have a presentation that I want to kind of go through. Literally minutes before this, I found a new video and I added to that presentation. So I was kind of, it was down to the wire on that. But if you haven't done so already, make sure you guys are following us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Rumble. For our guys over there watching this on Rumble, like we've talked about before, the comments don't show up here. So we will try to we will try to monitor that and make sure that you guys get included in the conversation too.
That's
because YouTube is not a friend of the Second Amendment. They're not a friend of the First Amendment. And, if we could just move everything over to Rumble, that'd be great. But Rumble's still in development. It's not quite as user-friendly on the viewer side or the content creator side, but hopefully they'll get there.
Just letting you know, all four of you guys over there on Rumble, I will be on it.
If you haven't done so already, we'd love it if you signed up for our newsletter on Substack. If you'd like to support our work, we do on this channel. You can actually become a Patreon member. Links for all that stuff is down in the description below. For all your gear and training needs, first and foremost, we are a training company. I won't get into all that, but we have lots of videos on that. But again, if you're serious about training, we train military, law enforcement, and civilians, basic through advanced carbine, medical courses, driving courses, off-road courses, handgun courses, long range courses.
Yep.
Again, come train with us. You'll be glad you did. Look, there's going to be a lot going on tonight. We got a lot to cover. And I want to try to keep this as orderly as possible in order to maximize information and the time for open discussion, questions and comments, etc. We do have several current and former Secret Service personnel watching this. They didn't want to come on live for obvious reasons, but they did say that they would text answers if they see that. So I'll be monitoring my phone, and we'll have updates on some of that stuff as we go along. The main thing that I want to do is kind of address some of the misinformation and misconceptions out there. Just like I talked about, we need to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff. If we're going to come to good conclusions, we got to have good information. And there's definitely some items that I can confirm are completely false that are floating around in the zeitgeist out there and on the webs.
Zeitgeist.
On the zeitgeist.
Man.
What is that?
Look it up.
And another thing I want to say is your interview you did, I watched it twice, and I still don't think I caught everything that was talked about in that. It was so intricate and detailed. If y'all haven't watched it, part 1 and part 2, watch them both and then watch them again, because you're going to hear stuff the second time that you was like, oh shoot, because I was trying to process what was going on the first time.
Sure.
And I come back around the second time like, oh shit, I missed that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That was an amazing interview.
And well, number one, I really do appreciate that. Look, the intent of that was to provide context. It is not to, defend the Secret Service or their actions or anything else. But I think there was some context that brought to the table that kind of pulled back the curtain on what's going on and what the men and women, because at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of fault to be thrown at the Secret Service. And look, I'm completely open to the idea that there's a conspiracy. I think, one of my favorite movies, The Usual Suspects, right? The guy talks about the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing everyone that he didn't exist.
Right.
And I think the idea that conspiracies don't happen, you have to be an idiot to believe that. There are conspiracies. The other thing that, in the same vein, we have gotten this idea that, the government can't pull off conspiracies because they're too incompetent. Folks, there are a lot of people that are incompetent. I think most of the forward-facing people are out there are incompetent, but I think there are many people behind the scenes that are absolutely brilliant, that are smart, that are good at social engineering, and they are very good at creating narratives and optics. And if you don't understand that, I think you need to pull your head out of your butt and out of the sand, because it does happen. It does go on. And there are smart people back there pulling the strings on a lot of things. One of the things that, and we'll definitely, after the presentation, which we're going to have here in a few minutes, which is really important, because especially with the video that I just pulled from the internet, I'm going to give you the source for that. Basically the video at the end of this, at the end of that presentation, this guy breaks things down, and it debunks a lot of things that I was thinking to be true or possible. But anyways, we'll get into that. But one of the misconceptions that I want to get out of the way right now that I keep hearing over and over again is that a lot of the agents on the ground, or those part of the shift, all right, that personal security detail at Trump, were actually DHS agents. Folks, this is totally incorrect.
Correct.
There
Incorrect.
are DHS agents on the ground, but you don't see them there. Those are the folks that are operating magnetometers. They're part of that detail. And quite frankly, I'm not sure that we saw any DHS agents. There were.
When you say we didn't see any of them, you're talking about in the videos and pictures that came out of the
Shots,
event.
Yeah. So every single person in Trump's personal security detail in that inner circle were absolutely confirmed to be Secret Service agents. So let's just get that out of the way right there. As one thing that I do want to clarify that I got from a source close to this was that the female agent that we've given a really hard time, right? She's the one that is probably displayed the most ineptitude.
I feel so bad for.
Oh my
sometimes.
God.
Hey, you know what? Hey, this is
I'm
the
like,
job she signed up for. Like, and folks,
Yeah.
we're going to talk about DEI and all that other stuff. I think that's a discussion that really needs to be had. And I think that's one that we're definitely going to have tonight. So that woman, not only was she definitely Secret Service, she was actually the lead or the agent in charge of that detail. Now, with all that said, and with all the shade that we've thrown at her that she earned, by the way, one thing I do want to put in perspective is that she was the one that forcefully went back time and time again and continued to ask for counter sniper teams. So there's some redeeming things that we got going on there. With that being said, every agent that would be in charge of that detail should have been doing that. And every agent that is on a security detail should be competent, should know what's going on, should be able to reholster a weapon, should all those things. So, I mean, I want to give credit where credit's due, and I want to be fair. That's really what this comes down to. I also want us to make sure that we're on the same page regarding events. I see a lot of confusion on the timeline and the perspectives of certain things. So I want to make sure that we get rid of discrepancies so that everybody here in this discussion, we are operating on the same set of facts. That's kind of my intention with this. And I think this presentation that I put together, now what I did was, I cut up some really important video, some credible sources. I found some really good videos that some of you sent to me, by the way. I watched, and I put these in there, and I've edited these down to the bare bone minimum of things. And I've put links in the description to those videos so that if you want to watch them in full and you want to hear more, background information and things like that, that is available to you. But the last video, I didn't have time to edit down. It's a little long. But I think it is the most important video in this, but I think all these videos provide context of what we're going on. We're seeing a lot of different analysis. Well, we're seeing a lot of analysis on the same things with people, very earnest, credible people coming to different conclusions. And when you have an event like this, that's naturally going to occur. So what we're going to do right now, bear with me. This is about 20 minutes long or so. Every now and then we'll stop it. We'll talk about what's going on, but I think this will give a lot more context and reestablish the facts, or establish the facts for a lot of people, so that we can have an informed discussion going on after we watch this. So if you will, Sean, go ahead and throw up that video. And let's. All right, so this is
two shooters. So let's reorient ourselves with the scene again. First up, they tell us that the shooter was here. This is very accurately located on the roof off of the drain pipe, as we covered before. And we have two victims here. Comparator, who died, another guy who's very severely injured. He has life-altering injuries. And then another gentleman back here in the upper right part of the stand. I'm going to show you all this evidence, okay? And I'm going to show you that the first 3 shots came from a very different weapon in a different location than the next string of shots, even in CNN a while ago. And they said here that the first 3 shots were consistent with weapon A, and the next 5 consistent with alleged weapon B, and the final acoustic impulse emitted by a third possible weapon C. I believe that's true, and weapon C is the sniper taking out Crooks, I think. This is per audio analysis by Catalin Gregores, director of the National Center for Media Forensics at the University of Colorado in Denver. So, and this is the best part about being alive today. We don't have to wait for 30, 40 years for a Zapruder film and people to sort of analyze it. We're doing this in real time and figuring this out as it's unfolding. And that is the absolute benefit of living in today's world with all these cell phones and cameras. Much harder to get away with really sloppy operations. And this was a sloppy operation because they missed their man. This is that
Take a look at what happened.
Wait. Hang on. I'm going to hear one more. There it was. There's that last one. This is the audio file. I pulled it into a program called Audacity, right, off of that video. And I find on here 9 separate shots, okay? So I find 3, then a grouping of 5, and then one last one out there. Number 9, I think, this is the sniper shot that would have, I think, looks like it took out Crooks just above the left eyebrow. If you want to go look at those, or, you know, the gross pictures, right? Obviously, he's all bloody and dead. We're going to look at these first 3 shots here so you understand how we can analyze the rest of them. And so here's the shot. This is the sonic crack. So that's the bullet is the blue arrows, and then the report is going to be the black arrows. So that's the crack, thump, crack, thump, crack, thump. And of course, it was the first bullet that nicked Trump's ear. There's 0.22 seconds between the crack and the thump, and knowing a little bit about the type of the bullet that was used and the caliber of it and the air conditions and things like that, you can estimate the distance of the shooter and how far away the shooter was. This is one of the videos, only videos that I know about, that shows, I think, the first stand victim getting shot. Okay, so hypothesis. What do we have here? Okay, here's the hypothesis. At least 2 shooters, maybe 3. Don't know. The first 3 shots, I suspect, my hypothesis is they came from inside the building, because I know for a fact we had 2 guns, period, maybe 3. I could make a case for 3. I'm not as solid on that. I'm going to wait for expert analysis, but we don't need any further expert analysis to understand there were 2 weapons being fired at the stage.
All right, so this is Edward Everhart, or whatever his name is. I want you guys to see what's going on with this building, and there's some other relevant information here as well. This is pretty short, but again, I think there's some really good information here that clarifies some of the misinformation or the confusion that is out there as well.
What I really want to show you is the building itself. But here's what I found to be really interesting. 2 things here that are not being talked about very much. First, there was a question of how the shooter got on top of this particular roof. The easiest way to do that would be to get on this air conditioner here and to get on this little breezeway right here and then to simply climb on top of the building right here. Okay, so I think most people who are fairly athletic could make that climb. Not many people are talking about this until recently, and that is that this building that's right behind it, there's a window here. And in this room up here, you can very easily see onto the top of this building. This position right here has total vantage to see the entirety of the roof here. And so
the video I found from this out of the view, and you would see if we're looking out there. All right, this is where things get interesting. And Mike Bell, you guys need to
What
follow
is the
this guy.
spray all about that happened at the attempted assassination? I will explain, and I will illustrate the bullet trajectories, which are quite peculiar. This is the 3D model, and then there's stuff that's specific for the day, and that's been very carefully aligned from this picture. So there's the photo, and there's the inlay. So these items here are all being placed as accurately as we can. And that's super important because when you look at the trajectories, you know, that's where it becomes crucial that it's lined up. If we come over here, we can see that this is the place where the crowd was calling the cops, and they were looking at this angle. And then there's a tacit photograph or video of the guy bear crawling up here, and then another shot of him within. You can actually see his hair and his glasses in the image. And the position of where he is as accurately placed as I could, according to the photographs afterwards.
So this is the guy
Yes, that they sent yes, Beaver County sniper scene and sent the pictures out. This is him.
Okay, all right.
Rifle's right there, obviously.
Got it. So the bike in the back, is he on that bike?
We don't know.
We don't know. So
I
we're
don't
just
know.
treating that as suspicious device.
Oh, 1 second. I believe the sniper that seen these and sent the pictures is right inside this building. Michelle, is Greg in there? All right, so if you go to that window that's open and yell for Greg, that's the sniper that sent the original pictures and seen him come from the bike and set the book back down and then lost sight of him.
Okay.
He's the one that sent the pictures out. I don't know if you got the same ones I did.
I think I did, yeah. He's like got his glasses on and he's
So we had the picture of that.
I got that
Okay,
picture,
and then
yeah.
this is his bike with the stuff. And our sniper.
All right, so we can see that the shooter here, they've clearly, he is basically trauma naked, which means they've tried to treat him, and that is pretty clear. They've removed his gun. They've
Him walking away from that, I believe.
Okay.
But he would be right inside that window. He's the one that physically seen this, sent the pictures, and called it out.
Okay, so and we have somebody detained, correct?
That I don't know.
People detained on this side. Our guy that was just up here told me that there's a guy detained who's the owner of the bike, and I said, no, that's the owner of the bike.
Basically, when I got
We've been up here, so we wouldn't know that information.
We just hauled ass and we got everybody.
Right, got it.
And we hopped up
No,
over it.
yeah, that's no problem. Is that all your stuff?
that was one of our
Yeah. Yeah, so someone came up looking to treat him.
Thing is, there were snipers posted on the roof there and posted on the roof here. So they were dual
all of
position.
them are pointing towards.
They were absolutely that if you check that angle there, they were clearly trained on this guy.
One thing I've confirmed, folks, that I think is really important to understand, that when it is SOP, standard operating procedures for the CSU teams, if they do not have a threat, they're looking through optics, i.e. binoculars. If they think there is an imminent threat or they've been made aware of a threat, they're on the glass of their rifle. So they're looking through the optics of they're using the rifle, right? So I think that's really important to understand going forward, that they're not going to just be scanning the crowd. But the moment that you see them on the guns, that means they are looking for a threat that they've been made aware of. And this is also really important because it comes up later as well. Yeah, there were 2 teams, 4 total CSU members up there, but the team on the right, who's this sector fell under, their view of the shooter was occluded by trees, and that's even more obvious in later illustrations that we'll see in just a minute.
These snipers over here were probably looking through, if that's him over there, these guys were looking through the edge of the tree, but this guy here,
Yeah, that's a very clear shot.
this guy's got a completely open shot, no problem at all. If we then have a look at the shots, this is very interesting because the first line was obviously aimed at the ex-president, and if we line it up through his ear, then what's interesting is that that's the line that just misses his ear. But if you carry on, you see that's the line that hits the piston of the hydraulic lift, which lines up perfectly with the thing. They're gushing out all its oil, and this thing dropping really fast.
Yeah. So that,
And you can actually see all the oil. You can see all the oil lying over here afterwards. Massive oil stain. I presume that's the first shot. And what seems to make more sense is, why is he such a bad shot that he actually, that's the first shot. And then the next shots are all to the left. And what seems to make sense to me is the first shot went off and he was immediately shot. So perhaps he was half dead.
Now understand, when he posted this video, folks, this was like moments, hours after this event took place. We're going to watch an updated video of his video is the one that was posted today that I think is going to change a lot of people's perspective on this entire event.
And then as he was still pulling in the trigger,
yeah,
the gun swung to the left. Then the next, the one guy, the fatality, was over here on this bleacher. Then the next guy who has got shot, and you can see him in this image. And then there was a third person shot. So whether he's over here or in this bleacher, I really have got no idea. I've got no information. So.
All right, this is Legally Armed America, really good channel. He also does a sound analysis. He also talks about the water tower. I think this is, again, good information as we compare different people's perspective on the same audio files and the different conclusions that they come to. I think is pretty interesting.
What about the shooter on the water tower? Now, I don't have information on the shooter supposedly on the water tower, right? Like, I have nothing on that thing, and I want to play that for you first.
So you can see a figure moving on top of this water tower. So take a look at your screen here.
Chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Now you see that figure disappear.
Wait.
Now you see that figure reemerge. Okay, now the figure reemerges. So interesting, right? Now we're going to zoom in. You can see this dark figure at the very top here as President Trump is speaking right before the shots are fired. And then this person right after, about 4 seconds after the shots are fired, steps out. You can listen to the ducks out of the view.
Okay, let me just say this. When I look at this video of this water tower from a great distance with horrible resolution film, obviously, not only is it really, really, really far away, but there's a lot of heat that's distorting the picture. Now, where they say that there is a shooter who comes out from behind whatever that is at the top, I'm not familiar with water towers, but whenever they say that, and then they say, ooh, look, he ducked back behind there, and ooh, look, he came back out. If we're going to add any real value to this blurry blob that we can't make out, the fact that it is moving doesn't concern me, because if you look at the rest of that water tower, the entire surface is bubbling and moving. So if you're going to tell me that when you see a dark blob moving, that's a person, then what do you call the light colored blob that's moving that I know isn't moving? I know this water tower is not moving to the far left over there. Again, that's the low resolution of the video, and of course the heat heating things up and causing issues with the picture itself. So you can't have it both ways.
Look, on this water tower thing, folks, I don't think that is a person up there. I think what we have is mirage taking place. We have distortion. And the other thing that everybody has to understand when it comes to the video on people's phones is we have a microprocessors in there that are constantly trying to manipulate the image to create a clear image, and will often create artifacts of things that we don't see. And quite frankly, the same thing with microphones. Microphones are constantly compressing audio. They're trying to isolate certain audio, and it creates artifacts that may or may not be there. And I think we're going to see a little bit of that more as we go along with this. But watch his analysis of this. And again, if you want to see the full thing, go check out his video, linked in the description as well.
I do think that he pointed out some very, very accurate points that nobody has seemed to bring up before, and that is an open window on the second floor. That's not likely to be protocol, if you ask me, to have an open window with a clear shot to the president, former president of the United States. So every single sound wave that comes into this microphone that you're going to see today is consistent as far as placement of where that microphone was. So crooks were on top of that building, further east on that building, and just to the west of him, out of that window, was somebody else shooting. That is roughly that same distance, roughly between 400 and 450 feet. So keep that in mind. This guy is not saying this is the same gun that shot this. He's saying this is the same distance that the shots were fired from.
If you measure the distance or the time duration between these two events, like this right here, if you look at the time codes here and you carefully measure this, it comes out to 0.22 seconds. If you do the math on that with some pretty good guesses about muzzle velocity, somewhere between 400 and 450 feet, essentially, based on the numbers that you use. And that's consistent with the position of the known shooter, the identified shooter, crooks, which are indicated here. These first 3 rounds are fired from the same distance. And they sound like the same rifle. They have about the same sound quality and sound signature. But we're going to focus on these things right here. So listen to it at half speed.
That's not the sniper shot yet, guys. This entire string of shots that we...
All right, so, just comparing their conclusions, basically they have this conclusion that there were shots fired from 400 feet, 800 feet, 1,400 feet. Personally, I think what they're hearing, and there are some echoes of the same shots. But I think that's, again, we're getting ready to watch another video. So, analyzing the same data, two people that I think are earnest, honest. They are not whack job conspiracy theorists, but they're also not state sponsored from the U.S. government to put out disinformation, are coming to two very, very different conclusions on that. And I think that is just in the heat of the moment and trying to work with what we have. But continue to watch here.
We just talked about up to now still don't include the sniper shot. So now we have an additional shot in addition to the 2 places already. Remember, one's 400 feet away, one's 800 feet away. Now we're 1,400 feet away.
All right, so pay close attention to this. I think you guys will agree that this is probably one of the most compelling videos out there, the most careful analysis of all the audio, as well as a correction on the actual flight path of these different bullets that account for the 3 rounds. We still don't have any account for the other 5 rounds, which I do think is interesting, but pay attention to this.
I want to make a clarification regarding the last video. The spectator ducking was not a victim, so the spread of trajectory shown in the video was not as wide. And also the shooter was killed after firing 8 shots. He wasn't killed after the first shot. Trying to get information out as quickly as possible, but of course there's the risk of partial information at that time but we were first to point out the trajectory of the bullet causing the hydraulic spray. So what we've done here is taken two audio sequences, the two best ones which demonstrate what we are trying to achieve. On the left, we've got a video that is taken near the fence line between the shooter and the stage, with the bullets flying close to directly overhead. I've cut the soundtrack so that they stack one above the other, so you can compare them vertically. In this case here, we've got Trump talking, and the first shot goes off, and then he stops talking. And the first 3 shots, then the 5 in rapid succession, and then the final shot, which you can clearly see has got a different pattern to the rest. When I play these, you'll be satisfied that they are all the same sound. As a comparison, these are the sonograms from the microphone at the lectern. Once again, you see Trump speaking, and then the first sonic boom. As the bullet flies past the microphone, the sonic boom makes a click sound, and then 0.22 seconds later, the report or the sound from the muzzle arrives, and it's this mark here. And I've lined up all the little clicks, and they line up nicely, and then the sound wave arriving comes through here. The first 3 shots from the microphone have gaps between them, and the sonogram is clearly defined. The rapid fire shots overlap each other. Unlike defense audio, the boom and pops, along with all the echoes, have become garbled. And then the 9th shot, which you can see doesn't have a sonic boom sound wave, it's just got the shot. So the top 8 look like the same weapon, the same pattern, and then the bottom one is a different pattern.
And why are people saying that there are multiple shooters?
In other audio, the sound can vary between the shots. And I guess that's what's given impetus to the idea that there might have been multiple weapons. I can't accept that it was just a lone gunman who got lucky on the day. This is the main shot that I've been using, and it's a jumble. It's all kind of guys running with his camera. From this, the big screen and these and the sound system is able to locate it, and you can see they're next to the fence. So from that, I've been able to locate them standing over here.
And you know, that's a little bit. He's going down! Stay over here.
These are all 8 shots from the same weapon and then a different one.
Look, in other videos, they talked about how different the first 3 sounded from the next 5. And what I'll say, going back to what I was talking about as far as audio compression and things like that, you know, the tones of these types of things are going to sound very different if the camera's facing that direction. If they're not, if there's also background noise and people are screaming and things like that, it is going to change the tone of that. But when we play this audio here that he's isolated, this does sound like the exact same weapon. If we're just going off a tone and we're going off of, and he will actually break this down and kind of account for those 8 shots. But, you know, I think understanding that is very important.
8 shell casings were found next to the murderer, according to officials. That was the same number deduced from the data before hearing the official count. So it's clear that there's 8 shots, which are the same, they sound the same, and then the last one sounds different.
What is the time frame of those 8 shots? How long did it take?
It was about 6 seconds from first to last. After the first 3 shots, there is a pause, then the rapid fire. And finally, the Secret Service shot, and then the shooting is all over.
So the directly from sources within the Secret Service, the information that I have is that from the first shot to the CS team's sniper response, counter sniper response, was 8 seconds. And this backs that up. I've seen different timelines, I've seen different numbers, but this is exactly what we're hearing from inside the Secret Service. From the first shot to the response shot that actually killed the shooter, it was 8 seconds. And this kind of, it corroborates that information.
Firing the first shot, and then he got out another 7 shots, and then he only got shot by the Secret Service. Why would they wait so long?
Because they could have shot him in this patch here.
Yeah, I mean, it did look like they were already focused on him. Could have shot him after the first shot. That's what I would have thought would happen.
All 4 snipers watching, all 4 were, 2 of them didn't have a great sight because they had to look through the trees, but the other 2 on the south, on the further away barn, good sight of him. Okay, so now we are going to do this, and this here is pretty cool. From the shooter, who is located over here, and the one shot from the sniper, who is on the south side, I have then animated the bullet and the sound wave, and then timed it to these positions over here. The blue marker is the sonic boom, and the yellow is the sound wave. The microphone shot has got the sonic boom and then the actual report from the rifle arriving later. The cell phone camera yet was next to the fence over here. So they were halfway between the gunman and the stage. And the bullets flying pretty close to overhead, crazy. And they're busy running and shouting and going nuts for obvious reasons.
So that's where that video you showed earlier, that's where they were standing.
Yes, this is this timeline. The video is taken over here, and what they do is they're looking this way, and they are seeing the boom lift with the sound system. And there's a fence right here that's next to them. They can see this building. And in the soundtrack, you can say, he's got a gun, he's on the roof, they can hear him. So they had seen that there's somebody over here, and they realized this before the shot came off. They were already alerted and going nuts. And then, of course, the microphone is over here. This is the soundtrack from this position over here, and this is the microphone over there. So there's the shot being fired. And there's the shot arriving, and there's the click. And there's the sound wave arriving at the camera, guys next to the fence. And there's the sound wave arriving at the microphone. All ties up very well.
Okay, so the spectator's camera didn't pick up the sonic boom. That's only on the microphone right by Trump.
Correct. The sonic boom picked up only if you're very close to the bullet. And then the same thing, here's the second shot being fired. Shot passes the microphone, passes this camera over here. And then the sound wave reaches the microphone. And then same thing over here. Shot gets fired.
Okay, I see. That's a good visualization.
These throt shots here are very clear. There's the next one. There's the next one. However, because these are rapid fire, they all jumble on top of each other.
But it all lines up perfectly.
Yeah, it's very nicely lining up. And you can actually see there's multiple sound waves that are still approaching in these cases. But I mean, if we look here at this shot
Have you calculated the relative speed of the bullet and the sound waves?
The average bullet speed worked out to be 750 meters per second. And then here's the next sound wave array arriving from the next bullet. And there's the sound wave from the previous bullet. So you can see there's a lot happening over here. And then the final shots, we play them. They come from over here. And arrives at the microphone and then arrives at the fence. Arriving at the fence later.
One shot from the sniper.
Yeah, one single shot.
Okay.
And neither of these positions picked up the sonic boom because it didn't come straight past and taking out crooks over there.
So that shows, that's kind of proof that all the bullets came from the same spot. Because if they came from the other side, or some people are saying there were shots coming from a water tower.
And this includes me. All right. Anybody that, this includes me, because I really was very suspicious of that open window, of that room, as well as, possibly the water tower. I think you need to pay attention to, because this guy lays out the trajectories and why or why not that those trajectories were possible if we had a shooter in those locations. I think that's pretty critical.
Or something. Where is that water tower?
Okay.
Oh, it's over there. Okay.
Yeah. So some people were saying that that on top of the water tower, I mean, they see a blob and the blob moves, and they are just imagining stuff. I mean, people desperate to have some alternative narrative. And the other reason why that's complete nonsense. The guy wouldn't have had a shot because it's blocked by the big screen. It's an impossible shot. Okay, then the other shot that people are talking about is this one over here, which is from this window, and this is the view. So, and they would have certainly from this view seen crooks, and supposedly in these offices should have been security people, and they would have seen the stage, but doesn't really make any sense.
Well, then they couldn't have hit his ear from that angle. It doesn't look like.
Yeah, it would have been difficult. And also the shot doesn't go past any of the victims. The victims were over there. There was the fatality. And here was David Dutch standing over here, and then James Copenhaver, who was sitting over there, or standing, we're not sure. So we know those are the 3 victims, which line up with the shot coming from Crooks, and the shot out the window doesn't go anywhere. That makes sense with what we see.
So hopefully, I know watching that video really did change my mind on a lot of different things. And again, there's a lot of other information out there. We're going to continue to sort through it. But I think that is probably one of the most definitive pieces of evidence I've seen that kind of rules out, in my mind, currently a second shooter. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments. I have Sean. I know many people posted a lot of different comments.
I got a quick question on it after watching that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So he said, and I know this is based on this guy doing his math and stuff like that, which seems pretty credible.
Right.
He's saying, if I read it right, somewhere around 24, 60 feet per second on that.
Yeah.
Me knowing a little bit about 556 223 velocity, typically it's 2,700 plus.
No,
from what I've seen.
Sure.
But I mean, and it says he bought,
nope.
no, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, it depends on, and it said he bought factory ammo.
Yeah.
So I'm sure if he would just went out and bought Tula, it could shoot that slow or have been a crappy setup than if he went out and bought Hornady or something like that.
So, depending on number one, 223, typically when you're buying 223 Remington versus 556, you're typically looking at 25 to 2,600, plus or minus a little bit in between, depending on the rifle setup and all those other things. So it doesn't surprise me at all. Now he could be off a couple of feet per second.
That's what I say. Is that enough?
There's
to be
enough
off?
fudge room. And again, this goes back to even the both Peak Prosperities and the other video that they were, they're making some assumptions on what the muzzle velocity actually is.
Right, based on their math that they're doing. I mean, so
well,
there's
it's not
probably
even math that they're doing. So what they're doing is they're saying, hey, we hear the crack, then we hear the boom. And then and we know that's 0.22 seconds. So if you take if you're going with 3,000 feet per second, which many people will say, 556 is moving 3,000 feet per second. We take 3,000 feet per second, we divide that by 0.22, and then you come up with how far that distance is. That's a very big different thing than if we went 2,500 feet per second divided by 0.22. So
that's math.
That is math, but that's
well,
that
we'll
is
point
where
out Egress.
that is where some of the differing information comes from. But I do think the biggest difference was, even while they're playing the video and playing the audio in some of the other videos, like, I think when they're like, oh, this sounds different, this looks like a different shot, on this audio wave, right? I think what they're hearing is echo off of other buildings, other structures.
Well, it's all metal there too, so it's gonna be echoing
Anything
funky.
metal and flat is gonna so
aluminium
and echoing off the water tower.
And I didn't show it, but they also come up with additional shots. So I think that's where we're at is, we have 8 shots from the shooter. Now, one thing that hasn't been answered is that where did those other 5 impacts go?
Mm-hmm.
That hasn't been addressed at all anywhere. And I think that's one of the $1 million questions. Now, going back to, whether you're, hopefully that puts some of that to bed. I'll just leave it like that. I do think at this point that we're dealing with one shooter. Now, there's a whole lot of other questions about whether or not, what happened with him and how did he get through it? Because I think at the end of the day, one of the biggest concerns of mine is that just objectively speaking, we have a very amateur person, not highly trained, that was very successful in their efforts. If this is the average effort of the Secret Service, and I'm not disparaging any of the men and women on the Secret Service at the ground level, right? I'm talking about leadership, and we can come up with all kinds of reasons of why this may be, but I think just objectively speaking, what we could say is that if this is the average detail, this is the average security that they pull on the ground, they are not able at this point in time to secure the men and women that they're supposed to be protecting. If that can happen at that level, then that is probably happening systemically. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe just things fell through the cracks. But what I do keep hearing from context that I have and Jason has is that, hey, this looks weird. Why didn't this happen? Well, that happens all the time. Well, why didn't this take place? Well, that's just, a lot of times when we're on the ground, that's what takes place. Why was there no liaison with local law enforcement? Why was there not counter surveillance teams on the ground? Why was there not a proper advance done? And again, one of the things I keep hearing, especially in election year, this is fairly commonplace.
Mm-hmm.
So that needs to be addressed, because what you're telling me is that it is very commonplace that at any time, and this is just, a lone crazy gunman. Let's buy that narrative for a minute. If that is the case, then you absolutely have no chance of securing the people that we're supposed to be protecting. Our democracy, all right, in the name of, as the Democrats would say, you can't secure our democracy against a trained, state-sponsored, highly capable person. There's no chance that is capable, that you're capable of doing that, and we've seen that on display. So if you can let this guy, a 20-year-old punk,
ride his bike with a backpack.
Well, he didn't. He actually drove there, but
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, 100%.
Climb on a roof, lay down.
Yeah, and everything that he did, now they're talking about, I know it's a republic, Daniel, God, maybe our judge, but we are a democratic republic. Let's get that straight. Part of what we have is we do inculcate democracy throughout our republic. That's, I always hear that argument, and I often give that argument. We're not a democracy. I didn't say that, but we have democracy, and that's what we use to elect our leaders.
I just want to go back to inculcate. I do not know.
I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that at all.
Real quick, I have a observation that's apparently incorrect. It's probably not relevant either, but to me, watching the video of Trump speaking when the shooting happened, it looked like it was the second shot that he flinched at and grabbed his ear.
I think that was just his time to process pain.
I think it was the first shot.
Really?
I think it took that long. Like, oh crap.
Like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I think.
And honestly, he probably heard it before he felt it.
Yeah.
So,
that file that showed the bullets flying matched up with the audio file and the sound waves were way behind the bullet.
No, the sound waves to the muzzle blast are behind the bullet.
Gotcha.
But the sonic crack of the bullet is right there at the bullet. It's constantly happened during the entire trajectory. It's breaking the sound barrier the entire time.
I just saw it always looked like it was the second shot to me. But
yeah, I think.
Who determined? Where did the info come from, and how was it determined that was the first shot? Is that based on the trajectory?
That was that trajectory when it hit that
he showed.
And I think everybody,
their hydro piston.
And I think everybody's kind of like, there's a lot of stuff people don't agree on, but I think people do agree on that. Not only trajectory, but just video analysis and everything else.
Gotcha.
So,
Like I said, it's probably not relevant, but just curious.
No, yeah, no, it's
I
a
thought
great
about
point.
the same thing because you heard the first crack and you heard the second one, then he grabs his ear. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was just registering pain.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's well known. There's been plenty of instances in combat where people have been hit and not felt it immediately.
Sure,
you
but
know,
usually the adrenaline at that point is way higher than would be in Trump's
sure,
case
for
when
sure.
he's standing on a stage giving a speech, and the adrenaline might play a huge factor in that.
Yeah,
I agree.
So again, I just hope that gives a little bit more clarity, and again, it helps us to narrow down the amount of information that we need to sort through. Because I do think, I agree with this guy. Somebody said, leave it to the Brits. He's actually not British; he's South African. But the point remains that it's some guy on the other side of the globe that's doing a better job than our FBI. And that is what's great. One of the things that the guy from Dr. Mark, whatever, from Peak Prosperity, he talks about is, this information is coming out because of concerned citizens that are highly capable citizens that are out there analyzing this information. We're going to get this information long before we get it from the FBI. I watched part of Director Ray's testimony. I started watching now former Director Cheadle's testimony, and I could tell we weren't going to get any information through that. I had my notes out. I was ready. I was like, I can't answer that question. I can't answer that question. I'm like,
I don't have that information.
This is a complete
Oh,
waste of time.
I was watching both Democrats and Republican rip into her. I was like, oh, I was like, ooh, I was like, that's a bad day.
So with anybody, if anybody over in the comments has additional input, or you think some of that stuff was wrong or whatever else, we want to hear all that. Sean, if you will, just kind of go through the comments right now, throw some comments up. We'll start addressing those.
Yeah, I saw somebody else said with the first shot, they said, obviously that's going to be your most lined up shot. You took your breath, you took your squeeze, and you went, shit. You know what I mean?
I also saw somebody else's comment. They commented on Trump's head position between the first and the second.
I saw that, yeah.
Which made sense to me too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't know. I don't know either. I
don't even think Trump.
They're saying so that shot that they're saying was caught on camera.
That was a cool shot.
They say that is the second shot.
You're talking about the trace that they claim they see.
You can see the smoke,
I don't know
and
apparently
or whatever.
Yeah. So
I looked at that picture. I don't know.
It reminded me of the pictures we took that day with your big pistol out there. How we could see the trace of the shot, you know what I mean, coming out of the barrel. And that's what it reminded me the most of.
Yeah. I think at this point that picture has been basically been deemed credible.
Yeah.
But it is surprising that was caught, and that's like a very historic shot at this point.
Oh yeah.
A local officer took a shot and missed, and I have yet to see anyone account for that shot.
I
They
didn't hear
have
about that.
not disclosed which officer took the shot or where he fired from.
How do we know that they took the shot? Has that been that information been put out?
I have not seen that in any official thing. I've heard that in the web. There's been lots of reports, just like there was lots of reports saying that, Trump's detail was made up of mainly DHS. We know that is false. So I don't know if that's been confirmed, Tara.
What type of shot? Was it a rifle shot or a pistol shot? Is what they're claiming that the local
I think the what's being said is there was a rifle shot or even a sniper shot. That's what I've heard too.
Okay.
A local law enforcement sniper took a shot at the shooter.
Well, where would they have been positioned?
That's a great question.
The water tower.
From talking to other sources, I've also gotten that information that there were two final shots by local law enforcement. We'll see if that comes out or not.
Well,
what do you mean final?
Where's
After he was immobilized?
Yes, after.
After he's immobilized, nobody's really recording then, I guess.
Gotcha. Well, that I guess that would align because the guy from Armed America was talking about, hey, listen, that's the ninth shot. And I said, maybe on the bottom of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was one of those shots because that was like 15, 20 seconds. Yeah. That was about 15 seconds after the first shots were fired.
Was to make sure he's on the live.
I think it's reasonable to say that the shot from the Secret Service counter snipers came in about 8 seconds, which, folks, is actually amazingly fast. If you don't have full confirmation of if you have reports coming over the radio and you're looking at as much square footage, and not really square footage, I've talked about this before, it's cubic footage. You're looking at length, width, and height.
Yep. Up,
right?
down, all around.
you have hundreds of thousands of square footage that you're looking at. And for them to find the guy at 8 seconds from the first shot and to get a shot off, calculate that distance, get a shot off
accurately,
and shoot the guy, the reports are right above his left eye.
It's where's Waldo.
That is fast.
Yeah.
That is fast. I do know that they train for a response of 15 seconds or less.
Yes.
So to get that under 8 seconds or at 8 seconds
just call it half
is
the
really
time,
quick.
Yeah.
You know, if I took any of you folks and you knew the distance of a target, let's say I told you guys, hey, this target's gonna be at 150 yards, but you didn't know what it was, or even if there was multiple targets out there, and I said, hey, you know, there's 100 different targets out there or whatever else, or we present a target out 150 yards away, somewhere within about a 15 degree, and we even sort of guide you on. For you to get on target and put a shot on target in under 8 seconds, I think is shockingly fast. You know, I think there were a lot of failures in this. I do not think that those failures sit with the counter sniper units. Not making an excuse for these guys or anything else. I'm not, you know, no one's paying me to say any of this stuff. I'm a concerned American. I fought for this country, is willing to die for this country. And I hate to see what's happening to our federal institutions, because I do think that they are being, I think between DOD and the federal agencies that we have, that we've all come to love and cherish, you know, me growing up and idolizing people in the FBI and the CIA and different, you know, special operations, all these things. I think their capabilities are being severely undermined. And I think it's an erosion that comes from DEI, politics, lower standards in general. I think those lower standards are directly connected to DEI. I think there are people being put in at the leadership position based on the color of their skin, what's between their legs, the people that they are attracted to. And I think middle management and even the boots on the ground are being selected with that same criteria, and it is devastating. And it's taken a long time, but we're going to continue to see an erosion of our capabilities. And it is because of that, along with politics that are being injected into these institutions, that is going to be the downfall of this country, along with a lot of other things. What do we got up here? What do you guys think about the courtyard area in between the two buildings? And could the guy have used that to hide or stage a weapon? Your guess is as good as mine, man. I think he definitely could. So you're talking about that area between the,
so like hit
on
it
the
there
other side of that,
like 4 days before, 5 days before, whatever.
I don't think it was that far planned out. I really don't. I don't think it was.
They say he bought a box of ammo that day, right?
And I'll tell you, Mark Bell, in that video, parts that I cut out, he talks about that. He's like, you know, I really do believe that this guy is planning on the fly, because he talks about where he was seen earlier. He's kind of doing an immediate area recon. And I think and again, we know that he flew a drone. We don't know what footage he got or anything like that from that. I do think that more that I see this, it is what it is on its face. And I think that's almost worse, because that means that we have a Secret Service incapable of protecting our leaders.
Well, look at it like, you know, we always talk about, hey, sorry, Summer, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Well, we always talk about like, hey, you know, the best way to catch people, like surveillance, right? Surveillance. Right? By the time they get to the target, right, it's already too late, right? Because it's already in motion. And if you have something like this, that's just, hey, this guy just is like, you know what? I'm going to do this today. Like, there's no way to detect that prior to, right? Like
lone wolves are definitely the hardest.
This should be the hardest
mitigate, deter, detect, and react to. There's no doubt about that.
Sure.
So, you know, if you're going to have something get pulled off like this and be successful, it's probably going to be that. But with that being said, again, they knew this guy was on the ground, and here's where the failures need to be addressed.
Oh, absolutely.
They knew he was on the ground. Somebody should have pulled Trump off that stage as soon as before the firing started. We see the video before the firing started. The snipers are on their guns, which means they know that they're looking for a credible threat. So therefore, the shift lead, by the way, should have actually pulled Trump off that stage immediately right then and there before we saw the. So there's that. Now let's back things up a little bit. Number one, there should have been counter surveillance teams or surveillance teams on the ground to detect a threat. There should have been Secret Service agents posted with local police, and the local police should have been given much more in-depth security responsibilities. They're reporting, and I think it's credible. I believe them over the Secret Service, or at least the director of the Secret Service. They said they were given no security responsibilities. The only responsibility they were given was traffic. That's a real problem. So, and going back as far as a conspiracy, I do think there is a conspiracy, and the conspiracy is this: we have a political conspiracy where we have an administration and a hostile federal government toward a candidate, and that is Trump. And I think we've seen that time and time again. I think they created this opportunity. I think they always knew that this was a possibility, and it was a indirect attempt.
They were
at his
hoping it
life.
would just somebody would have.
Yeah, like there's nobody in the United States right now, other than the sitting president, that would garner or would need more security than Trump. Like half the country hates him. It is what it is. And not only do they hate him, they hate him on a level. I mean, we have basically a Urban Dictionary disease named after this guy, Trump derangement syndrome, right? And it is a real thing. Like this, that needs to be added to the Journal of Medicine, because that is a real thing. There are people that have lost their freaking minds over Trump.
So, and this will tie into what you're saying right now.
I got something after you too somewhere.
So you're saying lone wolf, nobody behind him, nobody encouraging, nobody directing. In that case, I want to know more about this guy and his background.
He worked in a nursing home.
So
motivation.
I'm not saying that.
You're saying kind of
no predetermination.
The political climate has spun this to such a point that a freaking 20-year-old nobody is going to go out and think that they have a chance at this and go set this into motion and do this all by themselves.
I think so.
With so little
in my
planning.
opinion, I think social media and all that stuff, just this kid was just like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I think that's what it comes down to.
And that could
And thinking that if he got away with it, he'd go back into a chat room and be super cool.
Yeah, he wanted to be the next John Wilkes
I thought he completely planned on dying.
You think he planned on dying?
Yeah, I
planned
think
suicide from the beginning.
I mean, my first thought was if he thought he was going to make it out there alive, he was very stupid. But
right, I completely, like most active shooters, they completely plan on dying anyway.
I don't know. I still don't discount the fact that
he was directed. I'm not willing to discount that either. I mean, we don't know, and quite frankly, I'm not sure that we'll ever know. I mean,
and I really want to know more about his life prior to this happening.
Like I think it's accepted at least by the majority that our government in some way or another assassinated or was directly involved in the assassination of JFK. I think most people believe that.
Yes,
I do.
Yes.
I'll just tell you right now, I do. So, the recipe for this is you find a shitbag that you end up having him do this. You manipulate him in whatever way, and you have him do this, and then you eliminate said shitbag. And case closed, done. It's simple, it's easy. So I'm not saying that that's what happened. But what I'm saying is I don't take that possibility off the table.
And now there's so many ways to manipulate that there didn't exist in JFK's time. There's all these online chat rooms and all this anonymous this, that, and the other, and ways to encourage.
But that goes back to what I'm saying about like this whole surveillance thing. Like the more people know about something trying to happen, the less successful that could be.
That's what you've always said about everything.
Yeah.
The anti-conspiracy.
Throw up another.
Well, keep interrupting, Chris. He's
I was just saying. But
he's trying to make a point.
Did they debunk that he was in that BlackRock commercial? Did they debunk that?
No,
that is
they've
him, right?
confirmed that as far as
I
I know.
100% that was him.
He was in a BlackRock commercial.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And do you know? Okay, so
no, I don't know anything because I've just been buried in my usual work and I haven't done any.
Cool thing too is BlackRock owns the company that owns the buildings that he was on. Which they're throwing in there is like, well, they could have staked this out before because people could get in there and look, this is going to be the great spot. Look, like that. I don't know if they debunked that or not.
I think if we put a map up that showed all the different properties that
I know
directly or indirectly
it's 90%
BlackRock owns.
Yeah.
Like they probably own my house.
Right. But I'm saying
not.
that's another key thing to it too, within that. You know what I mean? And then the other thing I wanted to say too, before we get into questions. So you were saying that there was a direct correlation of lack of personnel provided to Trump. So are you saying that this was a backdoor thing that they went out to dinner at Applebee's and they talked about, hey, let's shorten up his staff for this thing, hoping?
I think
That's
they
exactly
have been denying resources.
Okay.
I think they have been denying resources intentionally for Trump because they hate Trump.
Because they're hoping something would happen.
Maybe.
It's just all backdoor, nothing on paper, nothing in text, just word of mouth out in the open.
Well, they can even have it on paper. They can come up with reasons like, oh, well, we got the UN, we got the RNC coming up, we got all this thing. And one of the things, the fact that Secret Service have to work the hours that they do is insane.
Oh, it is
given their responsibility, how critical their role is. The fact that there's only like 7,000. Look, I'm not about expanding government, but if you're going to expand anything, is we should probably expand the Secret Service
Instead of
numbers.
the IRS.
We should increase the standards. We should get rid of male versus female PT standards or whatever qualification, whatever standards. Like there's one high standard that's hard to do. All right. And then we pay them well. We do some really good recruiting and we increase the number from 7,000 to 10,000, 12,000, because let's be real. 7,000 is not the number of agents that are out there on security details. There's probably like 2,000, 3,000. The other 5,000 or 6,000 are a bunch of freaking pencil pushers. Stitches 221 says, granted, it may not have been an inside job with the shooter, but do you think it was possible that Trump was given a bad detail knowing that the chances of an attempt on him would be high? I don't know that.
Well, you kind of alluded to that a second ago.
No,
so I can kind of hit on that a little bit, right? So if those of you don't know, I used to be an instructor at JJRTC, so I used to train the Secret Service, and that to me, there's no such thing as a bad detail, right? They're all given. There's no.
Not even that one. That wasn't a bad one.
Well, I'm not going to get into a debate of their performance or not, right? I'm just saying that the way these detail works, they don't say, oh,
they
these
don't
guys,
pick these people
these
out.
guys suck, so we're going to put them together. That's not how it. That's just not how it works.
The D team,
right?
The other thing that Mike talked about was the fact that it's very likely that detail was his former actual presidential detail. Again, what he talked about was the fact that, again, these detail folks
follow him.
They get very close with them, and there's a level of trust established. So typically when they become former POTUS, that detail we don't know if that's true or not. We're just saying that is a possibility, and that may have been the case.
Shrinks a little bit, but still the core people stick with them.
Well, yeah. So his close personal detail, right? Yeah. Again.
So do you think
I didn't
that
realize that
woman that was the agent in charge was a former?
It's speculation, but
I have to call Daddy Trump.
But again, Mike said that is almost even likely. And here's the other thing that he talked about too, was like, yeah, she was a piss poor performer when we talked about the the tactical side of things. But it's also her being the lead. It was, she's primarily an administrative role, and I'm not, I'm not protecting her, defending her, or anything else. I think there's no defense for what we saw out there. But I think if we start really looking at the capabilities across the board of federal agents, and I don't care if we're talking about, FBI, diplomatic security. Several of us that have worked in this room have worked for diplomatic security. They do a very similar job. They go through a very high level of training, and then they don't go to training for 10, 15 years. Well, like things fall apart over that time.
Clarify this, because I saw this brought up a few times, is that the picture that's being plastered all over of her crouching is a picture. It could have been captured a moment in time as she's moving into position to do something else.
Correct. It's just like, when you catch two people kissing on camera, it looks like they're making out, but it might have been a peck.
But
right.
But the one thing
that
they
was
did
the weirdest
catch,
analogy I've ever heard.
I will say something.
Wasn't there like a
it could have looked like they were not kissing, but they
wasn't there like
were.
a famous Britney and Madonna picture of them like kissing at like
I don't know what you're talking about.
But anyway,
Okay.
the one thing that you
Cool,
can't
cool,
discount though is when she's standing at the beast and she's
Sure.
trying to do
No,
it. I mean, that's
Okay.
that
But
is
they're
like,
making
whoa,
they're making
easy.
such a big deal about saying she was using her protectee and her fellow Secret Service
That was
agents,
me making a big deal about it.
Mhm.
as cover.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Sure,
Fine,
that's
I'll give you
what-
credit. You made the big deal.
No, I mean,
But-
you're like them people.
Them
No, I said
two
they.
thumbs
I
in
said
them.
they. I'm sure you're not the only one that has pointed out that she
No.
appeared to be using them as cover.
A lot of people.
She look. Here's what I'll say.
I'm just saying it
No,
was a
no
picture.
matter what that picture captured in the moment of time,
It's not where she should have been.
it's not where she should have been.
Right.
They weren't doing
And
what they
she's
should have done.
clearly on her knees before she's getting to the protectee and seeking cover
Right.
before she puts her body on
I'm
the
not
protectee.
defending her or saying she
I'm just
was or
saying,
wasn't. I
like-
was just pointing out that many people had said, "Oh, it's just a picture. You don't know where she was in motion or what she was doing."
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I know she sucks at her job.
I mean, that's what I was just going to say. It's a job to her, and it was shown at that point in time. She's like, whoa,
And look,
I think of as a fatherly
I
figure
think
in that situation,
what
I would be
was-
all over somebody.
I think what was clear in that video of the agents surrounding Trump and then trying to get him off the stage is they were not in charge of him at all, which they needed to be more in charge of him.
Sure.
Freaking letting him stick his head up and his hand up and stop and get his shoes and all this other stuff. Like,
Trump was the biggest dude on that stage.
Well, I do
Yeah.
think
6'3",
I
whatever
do
he
think
weighs.
there's something to the fact that they're probably not going to be able to manhandle Trump, especially if you're 5'5".
I mean, that's Jay's size.
well,
And-
yeah.
And on top of
But
that,
even the bigger
220.
dudes weren't.
I'm
No, they
5'6"
weren't. And I also think that they're number one. We don't know what was coming over the radio.
Mhm.
They could have said, they may have already gotten the clear. Hey, threats down. I don't know. It's not. That is not correct in a protocol. I think we'll agree with that. What I will say is, again, Jay and I have both trained people doing PSD work, a lot of it. And what I didn't like to see, or the thing that stood out to me, is the confusion after they're moving him to the car. Like, and it happened to be the females up there pulling that rear security. Like, they didn't know where to look. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know what their job was. They looked confused as hell. So if we were doing a scenario based training, which Jay and I used to do this with diplomatic security agents all the time, like that would immediately stand out, and that would be an immediate AR point. Like, did you know where you needed to be looking? What was your job? Where did you need to go? Where was the protectee at that time? Like, if you can't answer those basic things, then there's something wrong. And it probably is. And Jay's brought this up to me personally, talking about having trained Secret Service and knowing their training schedule or the lack thereof. If you go 15 years and you haven't done practice that, you're going to suck at it. And that's another problem too, that has kind of been highlighted, that was brought up during Director Cheadle's testimony, was the fact that there's not a training cycle for them, really. There's not, hey, we're operational for 50% of the time. We do 25% of our time during a training cycle, getting sustainment training, retraining on new tactics, techniques, equipment, procedures, all those things, and then another 25% of downtime.
Well, let's ask the resident expert. Is the lack
Expert.
is the lack of training cycles due to the high volume of work?
Correct, right?
Okay.
So like it comes down to manpower, right? Or
Right.
I should say
Personnel.
personnel.
Personnel, you bigot.
I don't care.
Right.
I'm a woman. You can
What
say
an
manpower.
But their tempo's so high, right? Especially with the different amount of protectees that you have. And honestly, I will say, and this is not an excuse to not train, right? I will say it is hard for them to send people off of details, right? Or wherever they may be in investigation offices, stuff like that. It's hard for them to get back to the training center to go do a week of training, 2 weeks of training, stuff like that.
Because they don't have the proper staffing.
They
to
don't
relieve
have
them.
enough people, right? They and again, because the tempo is so high, right? You can always say to the Secret Service, like, hey, you need to have more people, right? Well, more people need to apply also, right? I can say I'm going to hire, I'm going to say I can hire 10,000 IRS agents. That doesn't mean 10,000 people are going to apply.
Well, here's
right?
here's the problem too, and me and Mike talked about this, was that there's a 48% turnover rate.
Yeah.
So that
And that's,
48%.
that's where I was going with this, right?
Probably
is that
because of the high temp.
the high tempo, right?
Yeah.
It is not a very work-life
Right.
friendly.
So my point is
organization.
that when you have a 48% turnover rate,
Mm-hmm.
that means more and more work. So they're probably getting away from that job because of the amount of hours they're working, right? And the stress of the job. And they're gone so much, that's not a good family life. So now we remove 48%, and now we have it even higher, op tempo for the rest. So it's a
Well,
train
remember,
wreck that just keeps getting worse.
You're not only dealing with people that are getting out because of tempo, you're also dealing with people that are retiring,
100%.
right? So you have retirements happening, plus people leaving the agency, right? And then that turnover to get people in there fast enough is really hard. And they don't go straight to detail.
Let's take a quick break here. Let's go through some of these comments here and bring some of the perspective of the audience into view. Waiting on you, Sean. Click on something. How do you know your official sources know what they're talking about when we just witnessed all the incompetence?
That's a good question.
Relevant question.
So, I think what we can say is they know what right looks like. Right.
I will also say that my sources, I feel, are very competent people. I've worked with them. I've trained with them. Like, I know they are competent individuals. So anyone I talk to, any information I get from them, if I wouldn't take it from them if I thought they were incompetent.
And here's the thing: there's no one that I've talked to, Jay, and you correct me if you're wrong. Correct me if you're wrong.
I'm always wrong.
I'll correct you when you're wrong. I haven't talked to anyone that is current or former Secret Service that has really tried to make any excuses for what's going on.
Right now.
I think generally speaking, they're pretty ashamed and embarrassed about, as every American should be,
Except the former director.
Except for the former director. She's going to
Everything
go
went
work
right.
again for Pepsi Cola.
Yeah. No, she's probably going to go to DHS now. That's where they're going to hire
and
her.
one of the things that I think, generally speaking, they've talked about is that there has been a progressive lowering of standards that we just didn't see before. And I think that's huge.
across
I think that's
every federal agency.
Yeah, that's agencies wide.
I understand.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is we're going to continue to see issues like this.
In the military,
well, you know as well as I know, Gary, that the government doesn't change until tragedy happens.
All right.
Right?
Yeah.
It takes tragedy to happen before they react. We are reactive, right?
And they'll react, they'll up, and then they'll get complacent again. It goes right back down to
DEI is even happening in my low grade government job, and it's awful.
I know, they hired you.
A middle-aged white case in point. I have mental handicap.
Mickey, why don't they use drones? They do use drones. They use there's counter drone protocols. There is drone stuff. But again, if that package wasn't part of what it was, they just weren't there.
If the package wasn't what they ordered or asked for.
Yeah, if it wasn't something that
Or wasn't authorized.
They felt needed,
authorized, whatever it was,
This
right?
is
They
not
do
the
use
correct
and we've already
package.
established that Trump's detail was cut down as much as it possibly could be.
Mm-hmm.
So-
And the other thing with the detail, I keep hearing like, oh, why weren't they all like bigger than Trump? I'm like, well, Trump is tremendous. Like, he's like 6'4".
Tremendous.
First of all,
6'3",
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Jay, to you, everybody's tremendous.
Well, I mean, point in fact, right? You got a former Green Beret here that's 5'6", right? That can pretty much handle himself pretty well, right?
I've seen you handle quite a few dudes at 216, about 6'2".
Yeah, right. To move somebody, but again, like to find
He's like a big roll
this many
cannonball.
people, to find many people that are Trump size or taller, and then all put them on his detail is that's
That
a
all
hard
want to work in the
with,
Secret
with,
Service.
with that being
NFL
said,
offensive line.
Yeah.
with that being said, I do think that they could have said we may not be able to find everybody that's 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", but when you look at, hey, look, there's a security detail with Trump, and like there's 4 chicks that are 5'4". Okay, that's the wrong answer.
200 pounds.
200 pounds. All right,
They cover a lot of
they're
ground.
short and big.
Well, they
got some thickness
yeah
to absorb the bullets.
That's right. They have more ballistic
coefficient.
No, ballistic
What I don't know
coverage.
It's like
Listen,
a big, it's like a big
I'm not
human
shaming
shield.
anybody. I got a little thickness too, so
Oh,
don't
here
worry
we
about
go.
it.
Anyways, all right. So Space Frog. From the testimony of the Secret Service director, it seems that the Secret Service was not alarmed by an individual with rangefinder. Any thoughts there?
Oh, I would love to talk about that
Ooh.
rangefinder.
That was a deep ass breath, Gary.
Well,
Jay wanted to talk.
Well, let me.
I don't even know that she knows. Listen, watching her,
She said it wasn't a
tried.
threat.
I tried
Maybe
to
she doesn't know
watch
what a
her for
rangefinder
like
is.
25 minutes, and then I couldn't do it anymore.
She said it was a golf one, I think, and it didn't matter.
I don't know that she knows what a rangefinder is.
That's what I just said.
I don't look,
She said
man.
it's a ping on the
I
side.
think
She's
you
like,
can
"Ah, it's golf."
you can look at her speak in front of the senators and the congressman and just know that chick ain't bright, man. She's not.
She shouldn't be in the position she's in.
She shouldn't have ever been in the position.
That's the biggest.
And this is the problem, is that we know that she was chosen by Jill Biden, basically one of her staffers that has a heart. If you do any research on this, one of her staffers, I forgot his name, but he is huge on DEI. He wanted a female in that position, and we continue to see that in the military. We can continue to see that in different local, state, and federal positions where we are destroying our country and are destroying our capabilities and our ability to respond to threats like this, or globally for that matter, by this mind virus. It's freaking stupid. I'm just sick of it, and I'm not going to play the game anymore either.
All right,
Anyways.
let's hear Jason's.
Well, with the rangefinder, my
Rangefinder.
question is this thing all about the rangefinder coming up all the time. My question is, when did they figure out this thing was a rangefinder, right? Because rangefinders, like they typically, a lot of them look like binoculars, right?
Oh.
So if you're on the outer perimeter, it's a mono,
Yeah,
right?
okay,
you know,
okay.
but you know, you can,
Vertical set of
I don't know,
Right.
man. I think
It could
rangefinders are pretty. They look like
Maybe
a
not to the
rangefinder,
average
but-
person.
Not
Right,
to the
I
average
mean-
person though, right? You know, like, so I'd like to know when and again, right, they should have been talking to him well in advance because of other suspicious activities he was doing. They needed to find him but the rangefinder, like I feel like, oh my God, he had a rangefinder. I feel like that's kind of hindsight, right?
It is.
Maybe, right? Like,
and at the end of the day, I think it's
you
not
wouldn't
even
have known
relevant.
possibly just looking at what that was or whatever.
I guess because you just
right?
like this, he could have
Yeah.
been videotaping, had a mini video
There's
recorder. Something.
right.
I mean,
It's
I get
not,
it.
That doesn't like peak like, oh my God, rangefinder.
He wasn't
And I
shouldering
bet-
something. Yeah.
I'd be willing to bet that there's been lots of people that bring a rangefinder because
Correct.
it's usually probably, 8 power, 6 power, something like that.
Right,
Usually,
exactly.
So if you're at the back, I bet there's been plenty of rangefinder. That's not the problem.
That's what I mean.
Like that wasn't the problem. The problem was that he was identified as suspicious for hours ahead of time.
That is the problem.
The fact that they didn't have enough control of that site to not be aware that he actually flew a drone prior to. There was failures at every level, and I think at the end of it all, there's two things that kind of boil down to, and that is number one, there wasn't enough people. Or at least there wasn't enough resources on the ground. There should have been counter surveillance on it. Counter surveillance would have taken care of all this. You have plainclothes people on the outside doing outside surveillance, making sure that when they see somebody like this, there is a network of folks out there on comms that say, "Hey, I see this suspicious guy. He's over my 2:00. This is my position. Where are you at? Okay, yeah, I see them too." Now we got multiple folks that can track this guy. That the moment he starts going toward a roof, 4 people know about it, and they have direct comms with the Secret Service. So that's where it should have been done. Yeah, and the fact that there was no advance done, folks, there was no advance done on that site. And the excuse is, hey, look, we had the UN thing going and we had the RNC. Yeah, okay, but it's also Trump. And here's the crazy thing: that was the first time, at least during this election cycle, that Trump had a counter surveillance, a counter sniper team.
Yep,
that was the first time.
I didn't know that.
So we were lucky because had there not been a counter sniper team, we would probably looking at 30 or 40 people dead.
I remember when I told you
Trump.
that. I remember when I told you, I was like, hey, this is the first time it's been in whatever. Like, could you imagine if that wasn't in place?
I can't understand why they don't have any plainclothes. Walmart has plainclothes people walking around. Why don't they have any plainclothes people?
I don't know if they
what
had
are the
them out
comments
there or
you
not.
got up there?
From what the his interview said, there wasn't no plainclothes people at all walking around.
No, I know.
No, Jay was saying he didn't. He wasn't sure.
I don't personally know. I'm not going to say like, oh, the
No, but with Mike,
was or
you said
wasn't.
there
I
wasn't.
haven't asked that question.
I just don't understand that.
Yeah,
Not
I
even
think, I
one?
think it's clear at this point there was no.
It's insane.
There was nobody out. There was nobody in the outer perimeter.
They're at Walmart and Best Buy, but not here.
Brenda says, why are businesses allowing sales of ammo when a candidate is coming to town that day?
Why
Because
hold on. Why do
Gary's
people,
got this.
Why are people allowed to speak freely when a candidate is coming to town?
Right.
Because it's a constitutional right, Brenda.
It's America.
Like that doesn't work. Like, do we stop allowing people to speak freely? I mean, what other constitutional rights should we violate just because the candidates come to town? That doesn't work for me.
Yeah, you can't shut down the entire town.
Gas stations.
You know,
I mean, you can do anything with anything.
How far do you need to like if you were going to do that? Like, how far would you have
do
to
we
shut
stop
down?
sales of knives because candidates come to town?
Right. Or like,
do we shut down all
maybe
cars
a
from
week
driving?
prior?
Do we not?
Right?
Do we
Bows
shut
and
down
arrows?
buying
Yeah.
bombs?
Yeah,
No.
I mean, catapults, catapults, Trojan horses. I mean, we can't stop all that. Come on.
Like, that's what Jason said was great. Like, where do we put the left and right limits to that? Do we say a week prior to? All that means is like, oh, I want to do this deed. I want to be careful what I say on YouTube. If I want to do this deed, they stop it a week out. So I need to make sure that I plan 8 days out.
Right. I mean, where do you?
Yeah. How about we just, have the government do their job, and like, again, this goes back to, there would be no chance that if this was average, that a more sophisticated threat could be stopped. And that's a scary
More
thing.
sophisticated.
I don't
That's a
think
perfect
even
way
feel
to
like
put
this
it.
guy was average. He was below average.
That's what I'm saying. But I'm not talking about average. I'm talking about if this is the average capabilities of the Secret
Oh,
Service.
gotcha.
If
I
this
thought you meant of
is
the
Paul
shooter.
Renee.
If he was an average shooter.
no,
Gotcha.
I like Paul Renee. Walmart has a bigger budget. I don't
They
know.
do.
I don't know. They might not.
no. Well,
we
we might be able to afford more people, more training, all those things. If we didn't spend billions sending it to freaking Ukraine.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
Wouldn't the agent's body armor worn to allow them to be shielded, skew the impressions of their body? No. Seth, I've never seen anybody that was in shape look like they were suddenly had a BMI of 60%.
It doesn't change how their face looks and stuff.
Like, no, she's chubby.
I was kind of like,
she's
I don't
thick.
I was like, I don't understand that question.
I didn't
And
understand it
now
at first
I
either.
get
Yeah.
No. She's
Hey, I got a question while
she's
we're going
chunky.
this.
Yeah.
Did Biden address anybody yet?
Yes.
I missed it then.
He's
So he's-
speaking.
It's
he's
tonight.
speaking.
It's
He's
tonight.
speaking right now.
So
I
he's-
was
yeah, he's
pretty
still alive,
sure. I was pretty sure he kicked the old bucket.
That's what
That's
I
what
was.
everybody's been saying.
Well, is this a CGI version or is is
Could
Hollywood
be a
makeup
new
and why
version?
did he write the letter on
He didn't.
on
That was his
White
wrong,
House
That's the wrong signature.
letterhead? Well, why didn't whoever wrote the letter put it on the
Well,
They don't
first
give
of
a
all,
letterhead?
it was Corinne Jean-Pierre.
Is
Just
he-
like she's the one that does all this tweeting.
Is he
Let's
dead?
be
Oh,
real.
that black chick with the Cheeto head.
Oh my God.
Cheeto. What's the Cheeto head?
She kind of has a frizzy hair.
Oh,
I know what he's
Kinda
saying.
looks like Cheeto.
I don't
Looks like
know.
Cheetos.
It's not as racist as he made it sound. I
Oh yeah,
promise you.
it's not. It's like
I don't even know what he's
I
talking
looks like
about.
she has Cheetos on her head.
Who's
I'm
the guy
sorry.
behind the camera? Are you all part of the company? Yes, no.
So we got Jason back there. We got Sean. They're
Yeah.
kind of working as co-producers. Let me address two things because this is relevant. Number one, I loved all the comments that were like these gotcha comments on this interview. Like, you said you wanted to be anonymous, but then you said, "Hey, Mike, how are you?" Or whatever I said. Like, first of all, you morons.
That's his real name.
If you think that's his real name,
And then you sit down to edit the video. Like if you had slipped and said it, you'd cut it out.
like, folks,
Stop.
It wasn't
that
live.
video. I spent like 10 to 15 hours editing at least, and I probably watched that through and through, or every part of it, probably 8 to 12 times. Like, no joke. So there's that. So if you think that, then you're silly. The other thing that says, well, the government is going to be able to identify him. Well,
What
no,
his voice profile?
no, duh, folks. He wasn't
He showed
anonymous
his
to
arm.
be to hide from the government. He was anonymous so that we wouldn't have other media hounding him. If we put his name out there, next thing you know, there's people out there knocking on his door and everything else. There's other ramifications that could.
Or you got just the general public that thinks they know everything and want to correct him.
Oh,
and tell him,
wow.
you know,
Oh,
how
100%.
messed
Wow,
up
the
he is.
amount of spewed information out there
Like
is
like
insane.
if you knew it, there could be some real issues if his name was known.
I mean, just look
And
at
it's
the
not
comments
about
on the,
and it's
on
not
the
about
interview.
the government or anything else. It's all about the public. Also, he has another job. Like, he doesn't need that heat brought on him in there. They see, there's
Find him on
there's
Facebook, kill,
there's-
just
all those
down
things.
on him and everything.
Which goes back to speaking about people that don't know what they're talking
What
about.
did
Like
you
I
say?
speaking about.
Neither Jason nor I can speak
Speaking
today.
about,
he can
right?
say that though.
Speaking about, right?
He can say
Right. People
Jason's
that don't know what they're
Latino,
talking.
just so you
Yeah, Bautista. Right?
he said it.
I got mad at Jesse Waters when he was talking about one of the female agents on there. You can hear her microphone, asking, what are we doing? Where are we going? I'm like, those are legit questions, right? Because there's multiple avenues that they can take, multiple ways that they can go. Like, so she's asking the shift lead, hey, what are we doing?
How
Where
do you
are we
want us
going?
to egress?
Yes. Right. So when we talk about people just making comments about like, oh, she doesn't even know what she's doing, I'm like, no, that's a legit question to ask the shift lead. What are we doing? Where are we going? Because he's making the call of, are we moving to a hard point? Are we going to the vehicles? What are we doing? Right.
Or in this case, this is she that's the shift.
And here's the
she-
thing.
she asked.
Like, those agents on the close protection side, during that whole time, they probably never knew where the shots were coming from.
No, they don't have time to stop and determine that.
So they're relying on people on the outside. And now, for instance, let's say the shooter was still in the crowd or something like that. They're relying on people on the outside to give them direction so that they know where the threat is and they can move appropriately.
Move away from the threat instead of towards it because they don't know where it's at. Yeah.
Or again, put cover behind whatever it is.
Which again is why where are we going and what are we doing is a valid question.
Yeah, it's a valid question, and people were getting on her about that. I was like, see, you don't understand like the inner workings of a PSD.
So
right.
So Jay, just for me being stupid, when you have the protectee on stage, do you have an A, B, C, and D exit? I mean, is that pre-planned, or they just say, "Hey, we're going this way or this way"?
You should have a pace plan, right? Primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. But you generally have an idea of what you're going. But depending on where the attack comes from, right, may depend on what you do.
Right. Okay,
right.
that makes sense.
Like, where are we going? The vehicles are over there. If the attack is coming from where the vehicles are, guess where I'm not going? Towards the vehicles. We're going to egress somewhere else, right? So when you ask those questions,
So do you have multiple, maybe this is too much information to reveal, but do you have multiple vehicles staged at all the different possible routes out then? Or do you just have,
no, you
trying to move the vehicles?
You have his motorcade.
Okay.
That's what you have.
That's like what we
Sean,
talked about.
Sean, if you will, just even though what we're talking, go ahead and throw up questions so that we know that there's a question to be, so that when we stop and gasp for air. The blonde female Secret Service agent with the bun absolutely did her job in covering a large gap in.
Yeah, I think she did a good job.
Shield when they stood Trump up.
I mean,
that was the one who was asking, "Hey, what are we doing? Where are we going?"
Mhm.
I believe so. Yeah, she did it. She did a good job.
I like that acronym there, the meat shield.
I'm going to show you the meat shield.
You better.
it'll be-
That's the next
I
barbecue.
think
That's what I
Cook's
want you
plan
to
to
do.
live.
That's what we're gonna say. I'm gonna put it on Facebook. Come to the meat shield.
Sean says, I think Crooks planned to live and had future plans because he had built 3 explosive devices, 2 in the van with receivers turned off and 1 at home.
Oh, I forgot about that. He had that receiver laying with him.
So they're also trying to figure out how. I'm curious to hear about these explosive devices to see how sophisticated those are and what that actually means.
Yeah, I forgot about
But that's irrelevant to his point, is that obviously he had contingency plans or follow-on plans. In my mind, I kind of think that he went there with one goal, but without a plan on how to execute it. So he came there with options because there is confirmed reports that he actually tried to get into the crowd and was denied. I don't know why, but he did try to go get into the crowd.
I didn't hear that one.
maybe because he had a bag or something with him, or
Well,
knows?
you
I don't know.
can't get through the metal detectors.
with
Like
that.
depending on where you
His-
try to get into the crowd.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the device that was found with him looked like a
Remote controllers.
well, it looked like, to me, it looked like a keypad for your garage door.
Yeah.
Is exactly what it looked like. And that would make sense because that can send a frequency because that's how they communicate is whatever megahertz, running to that. But that's what it looked like. So that's kind of interesting. I'd like to see some more on that.
Which to me lends more toward there was something else to it and he was directed.
There was a secondary. If he didn't execute the first one, he had a secondary backup plan or something.
Look, I'm not.
If he had the controller with him,
I have not ruled
or
out.
even the fact that he potentially planned to live. There was somebody telling him, "Oh, if you do this, you can get away, and you do this, you can get away." And
this will blow your truck up. They don't know it was yours and run. Or yeah, that's true.
Because he's 20 years old. I mean, how much knowledge of all this did he really have?
Well, number one, I'm definitely not ruling out the fact that he may have been a useful idiot. Number two, I was thinking about exactly what you just brought up. I'll tell you, man. Our kids,
man. Am I your man?
I said man to the general public.
I'm just joking.
It was ma'am.
Don't ever embarrass me while on the podcast.
Okay.
The level of sophistication of kids today is very different. Like, I was thinking about this, our 10-year-old. If I said, hey, how do we want to do this? I mean, they play so much Call of Duty. They know comms. Like they all use drones. Like their minds are on a different level of this.
Kids are not as complex and deep of a thinker anymore because of all those reasons you just listed.
They think short term.
Very short term. I think so, but I also
our kid is a little bit different. But I don't think he's an average kid.
I think
I'm sure I'm biased, but
I think
genuinely,
with what he pulled off is fairly it's not that sophisticated. Like I don't think that even creating. I think the average kid would think about making bombs or whatever else, and they can go online, they can figure out how to do
but
those
you
things.
just basically what you said that kids nowadays are more sophisticated because they do all these things.
I do. I think
they're more
tactically minded than I ever was a kid, for sure. Like they played Call of Duty to death. They've done all these things. Like they play paintball, like all this stuff.
Bro,
is
I
more
played a mean
ubiquitous.
game of Cowboys and Indians back in the day.
Yeah, I think
mean game.
I think how realistic some of these games are that they play are like, man, they're legit. Like planning stuff out, having primary alternate contingencies.
You're not wrong because even in those games, you're finding sniper points.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if you played them much. Me and Jay's played the shit out of Call of Duty before. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say how much we played, but you're looking for these spots on the map to where you're best covered. To where you're going to see the most amount of people move from point A to point B. They're always spawning at point A, so they're going to keep running out. Or you find these little dark shadows or dark cornered shadows to like hide in to kill people. I mean, on the game, it's just, I think you might be onto something. They're saying, this causes violence, but no, I think it gives them a more mindful aspect if they place themselves into that situation.
I agree.
They know what to do.
Real quick, Plants Heal. Good Lord, I'm not even drinking tonight.
Maybe that's the problem.
Maybe that is the problem.
You're a better speaker when you drink.
Brain can't function.
Plants Heal all over on Rumble. Like, why don't they have ballistic shields available? And M81. Yes, that is true. The banner was ballistic shielding. They also have things like they do have ballistic blankets and stuff.
I'm not convinced of that.
The banner being
in the
ballistic?
front. Mike brought that up. That was a possibility.
I know for a fact it was.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's confirmed.
That's confirmed.
They have ballistic blankets on the stage.
Man, I saw
not on the stage. The detail has them. Whether or not they did or not is
at that point.
You're saying that's a tool in their toolbox, whether or not they brought it.
That's what proximity is unknown. Then is what you're saying.
I don't know where they were, if they had them available or whatever. But
if it was
it
in the
is a tool
beast
that
or
we
something.
have.
Yeah. Okay.
Or they have, I should say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I didn't know that. That's actually pretty cool.
I mean, I really do think that the average kid is fairly tactically minded. I really do. Yeah. I think the average kid could have done the same level of sophistication. I think it'd be very common sense. Hey, I got a drone.
I wasn't necessarily talking about his tactics. I was talking about him planning to live and thinking he could get out of it.
Well, it might have been just a story in a sense of
naivete.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's actually a good point.
So naive.
I'll just be quiet.
I like that fancy word.
Well, I'm just saying.
Naivete.
Downing what you're saying. I'm just
naivete.
You're saying something. I'm responding to my thought.
You're not supposed to respond.
I'm sorry.
You're embarrassing me.
I should have said, yes, baby. That is right. I believe that to be true.
Some of your hair's turning red.
John says, what about his rep Eli Crane saying that he was a SEAL Team 6 sniper and then proceeds to say the dumbest?
I'm not following this comment.
Yeah, I didn't see that one, John.
Not
Not privy to that. Sometimes I just dumb
Oh,
shit.
he's saying that the rep was saying he was a sniper, and then talks about things like it's
Republican
like he doesn't
Eli
actually
Crane.
know.
Yeah.
That's
Gotcha.
right.
Well, and again, this is one of the things that what really prompted me making those videos was the fact that there
Basically,
was
he's
so
accusing
much.
the rep of stolen valor.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I don't know what his
lost.
background was, but I believe he was a sniper in whatever unit. I thought he was a Marine Corps.
I
I'm not
think it was
sure.
Army, and I think it was a scout platoon. Like,
Yeah, I'm
Army
not
scout
sure
platoon.
if I'm thinking of the right guy, but I've seen him talk.
Like again,
Does he
I've
sound
said
dumb
it.
when he
I've said
talks?
it. I've
Well, a
said
lot
it-
of stuff's all hindsight when I hear it, right?
Well,
I'm like, well,
and again, I've said it 1,000 times.
He was
You know,
he was
counter
SEAL Team
sniper
3,
operations,
whatever that is.
domestic counter sniper operations are completely different than
yes,
sniper operations. Like there's
Correct.
two different jobs.
Yep.
Like there are almost no parallels to them.
Which is why some of the analysis of this specific event that are out there, coming from a person with a different type of sniper background, are completely different than.
And they start talking about what things are suspicious.
Right.
Look, here's the thing. Before you know what something suspicious is, you have to know what normal is, right? We have to know what normal looks like before we can see
in that
something
specific situation.
And again, the stuff that they see, like if you were to shut down stuff every time something was suspicious, he would never be out on stage.
No, I'm talking
Right?
about when you're looking when we're talking about a deep state conspiracy, because
Correct.
that's where a lot of these
Yeah.
they were saying, hey, I know this was planned because, for instance, the counter sniper teams were out there in the open, you can see them. Folks, that's what they do.
Yeah, that's what
like,
they do.
Like they're out there in the open.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they serve as a deterrent, because you
Mhm.
can see that, hey, you know what, if I pull up a gun
It's
or
a nice
something like
visual
that,
deterrent.
like they're not hidden. Like that is what they do. And like anytime that you put yourself in a hide site, it greatly diminishes your ability to watch an area, right?
Yeah.
Because you're hidden. Your
Yeah, if I'm
overall.
Trying to maintain your own cover.
If I'm sitting in a building window in the back of the room, now I can only look out of the purview of that room.
Yeah, you got
that
your
window
degree
right there.
angle of view.
You can't
down.
see me in the room, but my vantage of seeing everything is greatly diminished, right?
Yeah.
So there's no point in that for these counter sniper operations.
100%.
Hey, I got a question just for my brain. The picture that showed the dude on the roof that was sitting there in flak jacket and everything, that's, you know what I mean? He was running an AR platform. Is it typically 308 or is it something higher? In the video you showed, that the guy was sitting there that had eyes on crooks.
Those were bolt action guns.
Yeah.
They're AR platform though.
No, they're not.
No, they're not.
They're AI. They're
So
accuracy international.
they're chassis guns.
Those are they're accuracy international. Yeah,
Okay.
Is what
Okay.
they
It looked like an AR platform, but they're okay.
They got the good stuff.
they do.
They got nice
They got plenty of money.
Now, I do know that counter sniper teams have semi-autos available to them, and typically
Yes.
those are going to be 308.
Okay. I was just wondering if they're still using 308, if they'd upgraded or whatever.
Hopefully they'll move to 6.5.
Well, that's
I'm not
kinda
sure
I
what their
expected.
ARs are, but
But I'm 99% sure.
I
that's
couldn't
still
believe that. I
308.
can't believe they're still in 308 realm.
This
I mean,
wasn't 308.
there's nothing wrong with it, but still, I just can't believe they haven't bumped up yet.
I mean, for law enforcement
Well, hold on.
activities,
I don't think that
Right.
those bolt guns are 308.
no, they're
I'll
not.
say that.
He's saying he thinks the
The AR
semi-auto,
platform
yeah.
ones, yeah, are still 308.
308.
It was just AR-10s, yeah.
If this wasn't an inside job, then why did Cheadle answer a single question?
because she's embarrassed.
Mhm.
Well,
Because if she answers there was something about that. If she answers a single question, it was going to open her up to
I don't know.
Prosecution.
stuff.
Oh,
Prosecution.
yeah, I'm
Well,
sure.
I don't know if you've watched any
Congressional hearings.
congressional hearings or
They never answer.
if you go, I mean, yeah, any agency head director,
They never answer a question.
they've never answered a question. It's an ongoing,
That's under
their
investigation,
answer
and I can't.
is
can't
it's an
disclose
ongoing
any information
investigation.
at
I
this
can't
time.
talk
Like
about.
when Mayorkas was there for like 3 days. He didn't answer a single question. He was like, I don't know the information. I don't recall. I don't know. I don't have that in front of me. I'm just like,
It's under
my God.
investigation.
Yeah.
Honestly,
What are we doing here?
honestly, if she came out there and just started spouting off all kinds of information and gave us all the information, I'm like, whoa, something's weird here. Like, this is a government conspiracy. This is completely different than what is normal. Therefore, it is suspicious. And that's where we'd go. What are some other comments up here? A lot of those were got you, yes or no. Yeah, were got you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes or no questions. And the minute she stayed straight from a yes or no answer, they would just be all over.
Hey, I'll give her a little bit of credit from
Don't you dare.
she stayed away from those 2A questions.
She did.
Right. She dodged that like the Matrix. She was,
For those who don't know, we're talking about the Second Amendment.
Yeah. She did not even dip
Brenda.
into that.
I'm talking about you, Brenda.
I just Googled it. They're using 300 Win mags.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
For the bolt?
Yeah, for the bolt guns.
She really dodged those Second Amendment issues there that they were really trying to get her to go down on. And I was like,
who were the people asking those questions?
I'm going to give you a guess.
wonder.
Just one guess.
Matter of fact, they opened, Nadler opened up with that is the premise that, the reason this really happened was because of the lack of gun control and the fact that we have, there's AR-15s. Here's my stance on that. What we really need to do when it comes to gun control is we need to have Congress start giving out allotments to ensure that every American home has an AR-15. That's where we need to be. That's America's rifle. And
what country
needs
is that? That makes you train on one? Every person?
There's lots. I mean,
No,
Israel,
I meant like
South Korea. They, they
I
train
thought it was like Switzerland or something like that. You have to be or something.
I don't know.
Jeff Johnson wants to point out that he said it was 300 wing mag 4 minutes ago. Good job, Chris.
Of course, Jeff would want to point that out.
Okay,
At least Google was right.
So I asked Mike this, and he didn't want to answer. So I will neither
Jeff said
confirm
it's
nor
Sweden,
deny.
by the way.
Sweden. That's
Confirm
you're right.
or
You're right,
deny.
right. I knew it was an S.
Oh, Mike didn't want to confirm or deny.
Yeah, what
Jeff
calibers they were
Johnson, no
using.
shit. My bad, Jeff. You right.
No, or to get away. He could have also planned to use explosive device to create a diversion to allow him to get into the firing position,
true.
or
That's
to get
a-
away.
that's- I mean, that's a
I
fair
don't
point.
think it would be a diversion to get into a firing position because the moment an actual
Well,
explosion took place,
You
they're
missed
gonna
another comment where
duck 'em
somebody said
too.
exactly that they were using the explosive. He was using the explosive devices as a diversion to pull resources to that so that he could get away.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right after the fact.
Yeah.
Right.
But he got
Since
too
that
quick.
person's analysis aligns with mine, they're brilliant.
But that's a I
Yeah,
buy that.
there
That's
you go.
that's a
Con-con.
good idea.
See, you and ConCon get along great.
Yeah, everybody's talked about that 5 minutes ago. We can't see those comments unless they bring them up big because the TV. We're looking at like a 14-inch TV.
We need a
right
bigger
now.
TV, people.
We need like an 80 or a 90.
Don't tell Gary that.
Summer such
I agree at this point because I'm trying to read the comments and I can't see anything.
They're fine for back here. I got this.
Okay. I do need to get my eyes checked though. My eyes are getting worse.
Yeah.
See, I'll just get my eyes checked, then we don't need a new TV.
That's right.
It doesn't help my eyes.
Yeah, well, Congress definitely needs education on firearms and what is what and what is not, and suppressors. That's another thing they need education on. They get all of their information from movies like Rambo, The Godfather, all of that.
Die Hard,
John Wick,
John Wick,
Boondock Saints.
Look at that. That guy fired a gun and it didn't even make a noise. What else we got over there? Well, look, folks, I think, the reality is that there's going to be a lot more information that's come out.
I can't wait.
May change everything. I'll tell you, I went into this, I was planning on today talking. Well, I'll just tell you, went into this saying I think there's a real possibility that there was a second shooter coming from that window. After I watched that video today, it was pretty compelling. I don't think that there is. I don't think that there was a second shooter. I think we have what we have. Now, the origin of all that, I think, is still up for debate. I think that we still have a major problem with a Secret Service that is not up to doing the job. No fault to the men and women there on the ground. I think it is completely a lack of leadership, and they're not giving you the shit you need to win. And my hat goes off to all the hardworking Secret Service men and women out there that are out there doing the job every single day, that are working 100 hours, 200 hours in a pay period. It's nuts. And I think, and I hope that this brings this sheds a light on things. So number one, people are holding the right people accountable, and that is our politicians and the people that they're appointing of these very critical government agencies that just aren't doing the job. But I do think that we need to keep an open mind to additional information coming out.
I wonder how much more information we're going to get at this point, because I feel like a lot of the analysis that we've seen is based on the information from videos that are already out and all the information that was readily available almost instantly.
You're probably not wrong, but I do think like there'll probably be people out there that'll analyze or find different things or possibly come up with the different anomalies that we can say, hey, maybe there was a second shooting.
What I don't think we're ever going to get is more information from officials, or not the level of information we'd like to see.
You gotta think we're not even 2 full weeks out yet, and there's still stuff coming out about JFK's. You know what I mean?
I'm just basing this on other events that have taken place, and we're waiting for information to come out.
Benghazi.
The Las Vegas shooting.
The Las Vegas shooting.
Yeah, we never found out anything about that guy.
Nothing.
Well, I think
it was bump stock.
Well, and here's the thing: if the guy that did the shooting, because I'm trying hard not to say his name, in any of these events, I think if those guys turned out to be, I'm talking about the shooter from Trump.
Oh,
I know his name. If he turned out to be a right wing or whatever, they would have that stuff plastered all over the place. I think the moment there seems to be this regular occurrence of. When I'm quite sure, I'll just say it right now.
The first
I really
thing that
do
came
believe
out was he was a registered Republican.
Yeah, even though that he actually donated money.
He gave
$15.
He donated money. He donated money to Democrats. I do think that you're probably not a Republican if you're shooting Trump.
Well,
I'm just going to go out there and say that.
Here's a news story I did read: is that he was Googling both Biden and Trump's locations. He was Googling when Trump's rally was going to take place. He's also Googling when the DNC was going to take place. So to me, in my mind, he was maybe just looking for the easiest access to make a statement and say,
he made it.
Here I am.
He just wanted to be. Maybe he's just going back to Las Vegas. That shooting. I really do believe in my heart of hearts that was a guy that wanted to create his own false flag, because I think he was a left-wing anti-gun nut. And because basically what he did, if you saw all the amount of guns and stuff, that was all theater.
Yeah.
That was theater. And I really do believe that the FBI knows that, and I don't think they want to share that information because, I do think, generally speaking, the federal government wants to disarm the American populace. So, that's my theory. I have no evidence of that, but that's my thoughts on it. All right, folks. Well, listen, we really appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you tune in next week. I do have some additional guests that I'm trying to get lined up. We're going to have more people commenting on this.
Sweet.
We do have probably another interview coming out of this with Mike and possibly other people that are close to this issue. And if there's questions that you guys have that want answered that you don't, that haven't been answered yet, put those in the comments, or you can even shoot us an email, services@ParamountTactical.com. And if you're not, please go follow us. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that stuff. But go follow us on other social media platforms. If you want to support our work, we are on Patreon. We really appreciate the help there. And also, how you can really support us is go to ParamountTactical.com. The only gear that we carry are items that we personally test and we believe in. And we also want you to come train with us. I promise you, almost all of our instructors are former special operations. All of our instructors are required to have operational experience as well as formal training experience, meaning that they have worked full-time as an instructor at an agency and or the military. So I think those two things are really important and is one of the things that really set us apart. But we really appreciate you tuning in tonight. And if you guys got nothing else, we appreciate you tuning in. But until next time, Sean, this is where you go up there to. Oh, never mind. You ready? You ready to do this? Until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you soon.